everyone. My name is Caitlin Gerard, and I am the school-based therapist here at Druid Hills High School. I work with Chris180, and I just wanted to take some time to introduce or explain our services a little bit more to those who may be new this year or to those who have heard of us but don't really know exactly what we do. So, Chris180 is a nonprofit mental health organization that is dedicated to helping children, youth, adults, and families overcome trauma to become productive citizens. We do this through a bunch of different programs, such as counseling. We offer counseling through our office locations as well as through our school-based program. We also do this through our, excuse me, violence prevention, our reentry programs, our wraparound services, substance use services, foster care and adoptions, um, among many other services. If you guys ever do have any questions about what services Chris180 provides, all of our programs are listed on our website, so I highly recommend checking that out. However, today I will be focusing primarily on our school-based program. So any school that has the school-based program through Chris180 has a trauma-informed therapist on site. Now, while the bulk of the school-based program is the trauma-informed therapist providing counseling services there in the school setting, we also do provide a bunch of different services, such as groups for students. We're also allowed to participate in IEP or 504 meetings, and we also do staff trainings, awareness events for students, as well as teacher coaching and support. There we go. Sorry about that. I ran into technical issues. I really do want to take some time to highlight how school-based services can provide support for teachers. The biggest way that we do this is through consultation. Um, However, this is not really something that a lot of people are aware that school-based services can help out with. So the biggest thing for our consultation program is that it allows us to collaborate with teachers to address behaviors that, teachers may be struggling to address. Maybe, they've tried X, Y, and Z and nothing is working and they've run out of ideas. It could also be the therapist coming into the classroom to observe the behavior to see if there's certain triggers that are setting off the behavior, and what can the teacher do to help manage those triggers to make sure that we're providing a trauma-informed classroom. So those are just some ways that consultation can look like. But the biggest takeaway from that is that it is a tool for teachers to come up with ideas to address behaviors that can be challenging. The other aspect to the consultation is that it is a way for teachers to potentially address their own triggers. Now, I will emphasize that this is not counseling for teachers, but it is a way for you to get some coaching on coping with some of your triggers. For example, I don't know about y'all, but I'm not too keen on students yelling at me due to my own past experiences, and that is a trigger for me. However, that is something that we often deal with. So it is important for me and you to make sure that we're using our own coping skills to manage those triggers. However, we're also human. This can be challenging sometimes. So this just allows teachers to have a resource for them to talk to a professional and come up with some ways to address some of those triggers and implement them into a classroom. So now that we've talked about what services look like, we can move on to when should a referral be made. Any student that is struggling with some type of mental health struggle would be a good fit for a referral. This can be anything from suicidal thoughts and self-harm to maybe a student is struggling with managing symptoms of ADHD. It can also be a good tool for students who have recently lost someone and need some grief counseling, or maybe a student is dealing with a lot of bullying at school and is having a difficult time coping with that. The other time when a referral would be good to make is if a parent is on board with getting their kids set up with services. We'll talk a little bit more about this here in a second. The last thing that I want to emphasize is if the student, has a mental health struggle, parents are on board, the last thing that they would need is that they regularly come to school. Any students that are struggling with truancy or frequently absent from school, unfortunately, would not be a good fit for our program, solely because our services are provided there in the school setting. So if the student's not there, then they're not able to get services. However, we do have a counseling office over on Claremont Road. So that could be a potential resource for the student instead. Um, so definitely feel free to reach out to me if you still feel like a student would be in need of counseling, but maybe school-based wouldn't be the best option for them. So we've established, what the criteria is for referring someone. However, let's say, you've done that and the student is still not set up with services. Why in the world is the student not set up with services? The biggest barrier to a student getting set up with services is that the guardian did not agree to services. Now, this does not always look like the parent or guardian outright saying that the student is, not going to do counseling, but it could also be the guardian not signing the referral form. It could be the student lost the referral form. It could also be the referral form was returned to the therapist and parents never followed through with getting the first appointment scheduled to complete an assessment. So I would say that is the biggest reason why a student would not get set up with services. The second biggest reason would be that insurance is not accepted. However, thankfully, Druid Hills High School does have a DeKalb County grant that does cover a lot of services. So this is not too much of a barrier for students, specifically at Druid Hills High School. Any students that may not have health insurance or maybe have a significant copay amount that would prevent them from getting services is covered through the grant. So that's not really a reason for students to not get set up with services. However, there are some complications along with that. The last reason that a student could be prevented from beginning services would be that this student stopped engaging. Let's say, for example, they do the assessment, they get set up with services, but then they never show up to their first couple of appointments. Once a student is not seen by a therapist for about a month, depending on what the circumstances are, we may extend that a little bit, but typically about a month, then the therapist works towards discharging the student from services. So now that we've talked about what makes a student a good fit for school-based services, and we've established that, well, what do we do from there? The first step would be to talk to the student's school counselor. After talking with the school counselor will fill out a referral form. Once the referral form is filled out, the school counselor will send it home with the student for the guardian to sign and then potentially fill out additional information on the referral form. After that is completed, the referral form is then returned either to the school counselor who gives it to me or it's returned directly to me. Now, let's say, we've done all of this, we've talked with the school counselor, there still hasn't been any follow through. You guys are more than welcome to follow up with me and ask about a specific student. That does allow me to, follow up with school counselors to ask, what's the situation here, and hopefully allow me to work with them to address any barriers that may be present. Or, we're all humans. Sometimes things happen and things go missed, which is why I definitely encourage you guys to talk with me, because it is important for us to collaborate with each other and work together as a team team to make sure that students are being supported. If you guys have any additional questions, feel free to fill out the Google form that will be attached with this PowerPoint, and I will answer any questions that you may have. Um, Aside from that, I hope you guys have a good school year, and feel free to reach out to me if there is any way that I can support you. Thank you. Bye.